into this. This is going to be an ongoing professional development that needs to take place today, tomorrow, and for many, many years to come. It's changing too quick for there to be an off-ramp.
Agreed. Great point. Thank you.
I think I would add and say, not to get, don't jump out into a tool so fast. Sometimes I've seen folks jump into tools and then our district try to adopt a tool, because I've spoken with several different other districts who've done this work, and some of them have jumped into tools too early, too soon. Going back to what problem are we solving? What is the need that we're resolving inside of the classroom for this teacher or for this department or whatever, helps to determine what tool would be useful for this. So again, don't let it be tool driven. Let it be driven by what we're already doing, our curriculum, and this is again to come alongside and be a partner. Like you mentioned, the internet. No one really rolled out the internet. We just started using it, and we adopted it to what we're already using. And saying some people like to use Google. Some folks like to use Firefox. Those are tools to help to come alongside what you're already doing inside the classroom. Just want to make that clarification.
Great. All right.
I think the one thing I would add is, from doing this systems level work that we've all spoken about, it's really important to look at what systems and structures you have that are working in conjunction with the professional development you're doing around AI. So it's not seen as something new or its own separate silo. So whether you are a district that has strong leadership teams, whether you're using a PLC model, to really figure out what are your systems and structures. And so that as you're offering this professional development, what systems and structures will support that work day in and day out, so that it's not just professional development in the moment and then no follow-up support and structure. Because as was mentioned previously, AI is changing. This is not the days of we could give you a professional development experience and you walked out with handouts and those handouts are going to be accurate for, the next several months or years. That's not the world we're living in now. So knowing that we make systems and structures available to support this work, I think is what we'll see the success going forward.
Great. Dr. Brockett, curious, with your background in special ed, do you have any thoughts or any work or suggestions, recommendations you could make on how district leaders and teachers could use AI tools to better serve multilingual learners, as well as students with IEPs or 504s, without isolating them from their own or core instruction, and how AI might be a tool in assisting with those learners?
Yeah, I think there's so many. This is very long. This is a whole summit itself when we talk about differentiation. But I think what AI does is it allows teachers to truly meet the students where they are within their classroom. So some of the tools that are available now that I think we could use immediately that are not hard is just the translation services available for our multilingual learners. Also, being able to take what is a normal reading assignment, when I say normal, at the general ed level, and being able to differentiate the Lexile level on that immediately. I used to have to take that to my librarian to have her break it down into the different Lexiles that I needed to meet my kids, so that the content was just as high, but they could actually read and comprehend what was being taught. So I think that the tools are there. It's teaching teachers how to use those tools so that they're effective. So there's so many ways. And like I said, I could go on and on because it's a passion of mine, but understanding that now teachers can use AI, so we don't have to push students out, have them go to a different place to get that extra support, but we can actually include them directly in the classroom. So there's a lot of ways to do it. And I don't want to say easy, because I'm not going to put, AI has its own challenges, but I do believe with the right professional development intertwined every time we do professional development on how we make sure it reaches every student. Because too often we do professional development and then we do a side professional development on how to reach each kid, where now that should all be intertwined into one.
Excellent. Hey, I've got a question from the field here, and it has to do with how district leaders use AIs and teachers use AIs, but in particular to serve multilingual learners, special ed, other groups that are sort of, without isolating them from core instruction, because that's always the challenge, right? Like the pull out, the pull in. Any thoughts on that from anyone on the panel?
I don't want to take this over, but I tried the wait time. Again, it goes to, there's so many tools out there with AI. There's different, even just with Google, Gemini, Google, there's different ways. I think that this is where districts really need to focus on what tools we include. When I say tools, what processes and procedures we include within our professional development every day, every time we put out professional development, to ensure we differentiate our own professional development for our own staff, teach them how to do that. So some of the easy one, I won't say easy because I know AI has its challenges and I don't ever want to discredit it. It takes time to learn this stuff. But there's resources. We could provide a list. I could definitely provide a list we could share with our listeners on different resources that you can take, like I just talked about, the Lexile Learning, the multi-translation services you can use that are, and being careful that we don't just reach out. I think Julian said it, and try every tool that's out there, but truly get the ones that we're comfortable with. And I think every teacher would find their own. There's so many now. But teaching teachers how, when they write their lesson plans, just including Gemini in that, and talking about who your students are. Because if you do the right gems in Gemini, you can say who your kids are in your classroom, and it'll automatically, when you do lessons, you don't have to tell it every time. So you can go into your second period science class, say that I have 7 kids that don't speak English. 3 of them speak this language, 2 of them speak that. I came from Clark County School District, Las Vegas. We had hundreds of different languages in our district. But now we could go and say, these students speak these languages. I still want them to learn my content, but I need to make sure that we give them some of the reading material in their own language alongside the regular, and it will do it for you as it helps you develop your lessons. So you still have to come up with the content. It will never replace teachers. What it will do is be that personal assistant on the side to help you differentiate each lesson, be it the reading levels. I taught special ed, and when we would put our students into general ed classrooms, it's not that they couldn't learn the material. They struggled with the reading level of the material. So rather than just not letting them take the class, now we can put that reading material into a program and have it break it down into the learning level of the student, so they're still getting the content while they're not struggling on the reading. So there's so, like I said, this could be a conversation, an entire summit on its own, but there's so many resources now that teaching teachers how to do that from the beginning, I think it could be one of the most powerful tools for teachers, is learning how to do that. And I think that's what could sell AI to the majority of our teachers, because whether you're teaching advanced placement courses or you're teaching just geometry, there's students of every level in every single class with differentiated learning needs. And AI will help us meet every single one of them.
Excellent, excellent. Anyone want to add to that, or we want to go to the next question?
I would like to add to that real quick,
Sure.
just to make sure that we funnel enthusiasm as well as we can, because from a technical standpoint, I want to make sure that we're also considering things like data privacy, security, those types of things. And so we're looking at different tools, we're looking at different functions and different roles, but also remember that when we are, as we do pilot different tools, as we do make agreements that we're going to use this or that or whatever, make sure that we have the proper data privacy agreements in place with those companies, whatever we choose, to make sure that we have the guard railing, so we teach accurate AI literacy to our district teachers, district employees, or whatever, so they know some of the do's and the don'ts when it comes to using AI. So we don't want to put the wrong type of information inside of these tools. So I want to make sure that that point is out there, especially when we start dealing with things like SPED and IEPs and things of that nature. So want to make sure that that's shared.
Excellent. All right. A number of questions coming up. I wonder, before I go to the other questions on the side, do any of you have a question for one of your colleagues of something they said in their presentation or anything before I move back to the group questions?
I would love the presentation. I will say that. I would love a copy of y'all's presentation.
Okay. Well, you know, we're going to be on our website. We're going to post all the presentations, so you'll be able to access all of them from the day. So you'll be able to see that, and you can refer people to it as well, too. And Dr. Brockett, you said something about, you know, it's a whole symposium in itself in terms of the conversation. And so that leads us into, in November, when we have our face-to-face, that might be an area that we might want to really focus in on and bring different teams together to challenge that that issue itself. So we do have time for probably maybe one more question, so we can sneak it in. And I'm gonna go to, let me see if I can read one here. Before expecting deep human AI partnerships, models call for building AI literacy. What does the foundation of AI literacy actually look like for a K-12 teacher versus a K-12 student? And how should districts measure progress? So that's a lot, but you want to take pieces of that, that would be great. And anyone want to start off?
I hate to be the only one talking. I think Stephanie's ready. I will if I need to, but Stephanie, if you'd like to take it.
Stephanie, you want to lead off on how should district measure progress on the implementation of the AI partnerships within students and teachers?
Yeah, I guess I would say one of the things when it comes to AI literacy for the educators is to really spend the time to unpack all of the components around AI so that educators understand how to evaluate the use of AI, to really look at tools, to think about how those will be responsibly integrated into the instruction and curriculum processes, to really think about sort of like that everyday use that they're going to bring to their classroom, and thinking about when they start to use AI to really have that AI literacy understanding around the outputs and being able to look for accuracy, to look for bias, to still bring their pedagogical judgment to the process. So I think when we talk about AI literacy for teachers, it's really, you know, I always say, go back to what is the purpose that we've identified for using AI, and really think about all of the pieces, if you will. It's like peeling back the onion that we need to be thinking about when we bring AI into the instruction that we're delivering in classrooms. And I think the AI literacy for students, I think there's a big need to really empower our students. We want them to take on this responsibility. We need to have those guardrails so that there is safety in place for them. But to really be able to build up their capacity to understand and to evaluate the ways that they can use AI responsibly for the work that they're being asked to do.
Excellent. And we're running out of time. We could go more. The questions are coming up. So I think one of the challenges we had, technically, I don't know if everything's synced in right away, because all of a sudden we've got a flood of questions and people coming on. So just in case, I'm going to give you a last statement. And if you can kind of just frame who you are, so in case people who missed the very beginning know who you are. We'll start with you, Julian, and then we'll work our way across, and we'll wrap up your session here.
Okay. Again, Julian Robinson, for those who are coming in, Julian Robinson, I serve as the Chief Technology Officer here at Savannah Chatham School District in Savannah, Georgia. Yes, we are in the middle of our AI implementation. We have kind of coined the phrase, a couple of phrases. One is to going slow to go fast when it comes to this. And the other phrase would be that we're partnering with AI. AI is not the driver. It's coming alongside what we're already doing, and we are monitoring it as we approach it. We don't run too fast. into tools. We make sure that we doing our due diligence, and we're sharing our knowledge as we pilot a tool or a concept with others inside of our classrooms and also our departments. And we're not afraid to say, "Hey, this is not working." So we'll sunset this and move to something different that's going to better serve us. So yeah, and I appreciate again being here.
Okay, Dr. Brockett.
So Debbie Brockett, I have 30 plus years in education. I do education consulting now, but my whole drive is around using AI as a tool to be able to differentiate education so we can start to include every student inside the classroom and truly continue to just push kids to more rigor and higher expectations using AI as a tool. My closing comment would be, more important than anything, educators are now responsible to make sure not only we understand the ethical use of AI, but make sure every kid from this day forward, all future generations truly understand how to use AI ethically, so it becomes a powerful tool and not something that works against us, but something that works for us.
Excellent. And last but not least, Stephanie Phillips, you get to back clean up.
Thanks, Yao. Stephanie Phillips. I'm currently doing consulting work for Education Development Center, over 30 years as a Vermont educator. And I would say in my roles focused on teaching and learning, the importance of seeing AI as a partner to the work we do in the teaching and learning realm, and the importance of really setting those intentions and purpose for our educators and our students.
Thank you all so much. And I'm going to wrap up with allowing people to know that we've got some great panelists across the day this morning, and we're going to have our next session soon. But this is a preamble, a prelude to our face-to-face in November at Clearwater Beach, and where we will expand on some of these topics and go deeper and work with teams in terms of developing actions. So go onto our website. Look at the information. If you're interested in coming out in November, please do that. And those of you who are also watching, if you'd like to be a presenter, as an opportunity to be a presenter, hit the call for presenter, fill out your application, and we will look forward to seeing you in November. All right, Stephanie, Julian, and Dr. Brockett, thank you so much for being here. Hopefully you can join us throughout the day and watch the other panelists, but it's been great having you here. On behalf of TWI Group and TomoClub, congratulations on a well done job, and we'll see you.
All right,
Thanks, Yao.
Thank you.
It's great meeting you all.
All right, we're going to be 2 minutes and we'll start our next session in a minute, so hang tough. All right, let me let these people in. Let's see, we've got LaShawn. I'll let Noel in.
There we go.
All right.
You had me worried. I didn't know where I was.
No, you're in the right spot. I was just waiting for the other session to move on. Okay, we're still on live, but we haven't started. We're going to start in a minute. And just to give you a little bit of background, do I see everyone here? I see LaShawn, I see Melvin, and who are we missing? Anita, are you there? Dr. Davies, are you on there? I think I see you in here somewhere. Okay. All right, we're gonna start because we're right on time. So in 2 minutes we'll start the next session. All right. So what we're gonna do is we'll eventually introduce you one by one. Do your slides. You got about 5 minutes. Do your intro, and then we'll have a conversation with the 4 of us, and we'll take some questions from the field as well too, and wrap all that within like 40 minutes. So not a lot of time. Time flies quickly, but you get the deal, right? All right. Kevin, do you see Dr. Davies on there somewhere? I don't see her.
I do not right now see Dr. Borishati.
Okay. She's supposed to be on this session. I'll send you an email with her as well too, so you can track her down.
Okay.
I got time to run the restroom real quick.
Go ahead.
Good. Is that okay?
Yep, you're good.
All right, be right back.
All right. Did you get that email, Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, let's just check, see if we've got everybody here. LaShawn, you here? Mic check. Speak so I can hear. Make sure your mic's working.
Here.
Okay. Dr. Brown.
And I'm just Melvin.
Yeah. Okay. Dr. Davies. Anita, are you here? Okay, I don't see her. She was on here like before 9 o'clock. I think we lost her. And you haven't had any contact back from her, Mr. Robinson?
Not yet. Just tried emailing her with the
Okay.
presenters link, so hopefully she will.
Okay, let's let me know if she comes on. We'll have to get started because time is limited. Okay, you guys ready?
Let's roll.
All right, let's go. Hold on a sec. All right, welcome, welcome. Oh, there's Dr. Jack. All right, good. We found you. Okay, good stuff. All right, so I'm Yao Bang, former CEO, superintendent, TO group, and excited to have you here for this National Education Summit. This is a prelude to our face-to-face in November at Clearwater Beach, where we'll have interaction and great networking. But excited to let you know that we are streaming through YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook, and we've got a global audience, and we've got panelists from Canada and the US, and I'm hoping others will jump in from other parts of the world. But we're not just speaking to the US education system, but we're talking about education overall. And the way we're going to do, we've got 3 panelists for this session. We've got another session after this one, and we'll have each panelist kind of introduce themselves and have a few couple of statements with their presentations, and then we're going to get into a conversation. Okay, so let me start with, I'm going to do one at a time. I'll introduce one panelist, and then we will move on. I'm going to start with LaShawn Whitmore-Sells. LaShawn Whitmore-Sells is a principal at Shoreham Elementary School and a seasoned educator leader with 20 years advanced equity, inclusion, cultural responsive practice, and student-centered learning across Vermont, Burlington School Districts, and Burlington Farm Country Day School. And welcome, LaShawn.
Good morning.
All right, LaShawn, I'm going to put your slide up, LaShawn, and then have you do your piece there. Let me take this one off and find your presentation. Okay. Okay.
All right. Good morning, everyone. So my slide, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what are ways to help students achieve academically and socially. And so when I think about our students and thinking about them academically and socially, the quote that came up for me was from Rita Pearson. Every student deserves a champion, someone who will never give up on them, who understands the power of connection and insists that they become the best that they can be. And the reason I chose this is because if you had the pleasure of seeing the TED Talk, it is all about student connections. And it's about helping our students to be the best they can possibly be. So let's start with thinking about socially. And so when we're thinking socially, we're thinking about how do we foster belonging? When you think about your journey as an educator or as a student, think about the teachers who made a difference, and those teachers who helped make those connections and had you feel a sense of belonging. You felt like you wanted to do more. You wanted to really, go the extra mile as a student. And so, it's very important that we cultivate community by fostering a safe and supportive and inclusive environment so all students feel seen, heard, and valued. I mean, that's very important. And we also know by doing that, that drives that academic growth right up there. So when students feel deeply valued, they become far more willing to participate and collaborate and be vulnerable, just as I stated earlier. And so that's really, really important. And so we need to kind of think about that when we're thinking socially. Academically, collaborate for betterment. Educators work together collaboratively for the betterment of students and families, and that boosts a student achievement. And so when parents feel they can make a connection to talk with their teacher or an administrator about their child and what's going on, it really helps to create that sense of bond, that sense of trust, that sense of you've got my child's back and you want to see them be successful. And so that's really important to create a positive, supportive learning environment for all. Strategic alignment by establishing a systematic planning process and training to ensure curriculum and consistency and continuous growth for teachers. We constantly hear from teachers, they want to do what's best for their students, but we need to make sure we're setting the stage for that we're giving them the tools that they need in their toolbox to be able to be successful. And so I think, I always like to use the word intentionality all the time. We need to have intentionality around what we're doing, what we're reviewing, how we're setting them up for success.
Okay, thank you. Somebody is giving us some biofeedback. I don't know who that was, but thank you, LaShawn, for that framework. Now, LaShawn, you've had some great experiences as principal in schools. And what do you say? What would you comment to parents that say, you know what? Yeah, forget about the social, emotional garbage. I just want my kids to have the 3 R's: reading, writing, arithmetic. And so, what would your comment be to that, and how have you responded in your practice?
I think, when you have parents that are commenting on that, they don't see the power of connection. And I think for me, one of the things I always like to share with them is by having that power of connection, your child now is expanding their knowledge. They're learning from Sue or Bob about blah, 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 and blah, 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 and how that connection is great. And a lot of times I like them to come and see, and see how their child is doing and seeing how that is making a difference in their life. Young people, it's amazing just to watch them just kind of cross-pollinate with each other and what they come up with and how excited they get educationally when they have that. And so, yes, we have the 3 R's, but that's not the end all be all. There's a bigger piece, because eventually, they're going to find out you have to be able to connect with people. You have to be able to talk to people. And if you don't have those skills, then 3 R's really don't have as much meaning. I'm sorry, they don't.
All right. Thank you so much. Cross-pollinate. Are you like a biology major or something?
No.
Stuff like that, Thank you. So we're gonna move on. We're gonna give each panelist an opportunity to do their statement, and then we're gonna get into the conversation. I'm gonna move to our good friend here, Dr. Melvin Brown. Dr. Melvin Brown is the president and CEO of Soul Vision LLC and superintendent in residence at Define LLC, a veteran K-12 leader, author, and consultant. He helps districts advance equity leadership development and career-connected learning for lifelong student success. And I think he has more accolades to add to that in terms of newness and things. But Melvin, welcome. Thank you for joining us. And you can start your preamble, and I'll queue up your slides while you introduce yourself and get started.
Sounds good. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me. A great opportunity to share with a fantastic slate of panelists. And I know we're going to dig deep into some educational issues. I'm Dr. Melvin J. Brown, former superintendent, Montgomery Public Schools in Alabama, Reynoldsburg City Schools in Ohio, assistant superintendent, associate superintendent, deputy superintendent, principal, all the things, former English teacher, which was my most important, in my opinion, my most important job. I'm a huge advocate for belonging. I want to thank Dr. Whitmore Sells for adding that, and the fact that those things drive instruction. When parents talk about math or reading or whatever, yes, they're incredibly important, but none of those things take place in the way that they should if kids don't feel like they belong at school. There's a very distinct difference between fitting in and belonging. Fitting in means that you have some characteristics that resemble everyone else in the space, so they accept you. Belonging means you bring your full, authentic self into the room, and you can be as comfortable as you can possibly be, which allows you to flourish in a place where there's connectedness, in a place where there's authenticity, and you have a chance to actually experience exposure through the right lens that applies to you and your life. I'm a huge advocate for equity, have always been. And in my book, Roaches in My Cereal and the More Imperative to Reimagine School, I talk about those things from the stance of a lived truth. We all have stories, we all have experiences, we all have traumas that have impacted us one way or another. And I think it's important that schools begin to recognize those as individual issues and not group issues. We all see kids with trauma. If 2 kids experience the loss of a parent, yes, that event happened to both of them, but they experience it very differently, and it will manifest very differently. If we don't understand and know them, we can't truly attend to their needs. As far as leadership lessons, we have a responsibility to make sure that our spaces, our schools, are based on kids' needs, not the adult needs. And far too often, we make decisions that are in the best interest of adults. We don't focus in many ways on what those kids need. And then providing some ideas about what that's supposed to look like from a courageous standpoint and taking on stances on behalf of kids. That is the key. In my book, I talk a lot about the whole notion of exposing the unseen architecture of inequity that exists in schools and shapes too many of our students' lives, and too many of their failures that's what we highlight. We don't talk about their strengths and their assets. So in the book, I try to talk about, I want to identify some important questions. One, how systems built on privilege continue to punish poverty. What does that look like, and how do kids come to school and experience that? Two, how schools often misread behavior as defiance instead of distress. Kids don't act out just because they don't like everybody in their room. They're acting out for a reason. They bully for a reason. When do we dig into those things to find out the practical notions about how to address those? And then three, how empathy, access, and high expectations can completely transform a child's trajectory. The words and actions that the adults display to and present to kids can lead to who they might be in their later life. If a kid hears one time that he's not good enough, or he gets the impression that he's not good enough, how does that manifest when that child is 25 years old? And now he has had a lifetime of not belonging, not being important, and he will seek a life that isn't necessarily what his full capacity could have been. Those are the types of things we have to consider when we interface with kids. And those are the types of spaces we need to create so they can all be their authentic selves when they come to the table. I have had a ton of experience in my 33 years in education. I mentioned being a superintendent. I've worked in 4 different states. I've currently just taken on another role as a chief of HR in Jefferson County Schools in Kentucky. Literally, this is week 2. That's where I am at the moment. I am a staunch advocate for public education and unapologetic about that work. And I think in this political environment in which we live, that's the notions we have. Those are the notions we have to have.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Dr. Brown, for staying in the game. I'm excited for you for your new opportunity. You're going to bring your wisdom and your experience to that. You've got so many golden nuggets that you talked about, and I know in your book you share some of those pieces as well too. But I'm going to get granular. I mean, I would love for you to talk system level, but I'm going to get granular. And there was a mention about greeting students by name and using personalized handshakes as actionable examples of cultivating community. What are other low-cost actions that we can do to engage students? Because this conversation here is about the soft underbelly of education, the social component that impacts what they actually do and how it leads to achievement. So do you have any thoughts around that in terms of maybe at a system level, or even at a classroom level, in terms of low-cost actions to engage in our students?
Yeah, I don't think there's any other metric that's more powerful than the percentage of adults that play a significant role in kids' lives in classrooms. So if every kid comes to school and has at least one trusted adult that he or she can tell anything to, can share anything with, can get input and advice from, and they have those go-to people, that completely increases their ability to compete in school and do well, academically, socially, philosophically, however that might look. And I think if we're more intentional about how we foster relationships between adults and kids and providing them that they know they have their go-to or their go-tos, which happens in many schools across the country, that alone can help them be academically more successful. I think we undervalue that, particularly in this space where we're struggling to fill teacher positions and things of that nature. I think we have to be very, very intentional about matching kids with adults who know and understand them, so kids have those go-tos. To me, that's an easy way to make sure they have a chance to perform better in school.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. All right. I want to give everyone an opportunity to do their STEM, but last but not least, we've got Dr. Anita Jack Davies, and I'll do your introduction, Anita, and then we'll get started. So Dr. Anita Jack Davies is an academic and internationally management consultant specializing in inclusive workplace cultures, employees engagement, and strategic planning with leadership experience at an ethical cultural Fieldstone School and Skidmore College. And Dr. Davies has worked from K to 12 and also at higher ed and is moving globally. So Anita, welcome to our panel. And I'm going to queue up your slides and you can introduce yourself and start your slides whenever you are ready.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent Obeng, for having me here today. Please call me AJ. Today, I'd like to talk about the fact that in my opinion, we seem to be approaching culture and community, whether we call that DEI, DEIB, inclusion and belonging, I'm wondering if we're still approaching that using a very cosmetic or surface level. And today, what I'd like to talk about is what's the role of operations in creating sustainable cultures? So often, if I'm invited to a school to support that school to build culture, and I say to them, tell me what your systems are, show me your back end, I'm often left with a blank stare. So, what I'd like to argue, or at least have a conversation with the panel about, is are we still operating at the level of identity? And when are we going to start moving to systems and operations so that we can begin talking about these issues in the same way that we talk about budgets and we talk about alumni affairs and we talk about HR? Should we be talking about culture, and should we be adding an operations component to it? Because what I'd like to argue is that when we're looking at culture as just an event or a series of events, to me, that's not sustainable. And what I'd like for us to do is to think about culture as something that we are approaching systematically. We are approaching with intention, as we heard before with the two doctors that presented before me. And I'd like to think about, if we can go to the slide with the diagram, I believe that building positive school cultures takes more than good intentions.
Do I slide or do I advance?
Go to slide number 3, please.
Yeah.
So building a positive school culture takes more than good intentions. It requires people working together. It requires clear plans, and it requires a system that support the work every day. So when culture and operations work together, schools are better able to live their mission and their values. So what does this look like? What I'm basically saying in terms of the work that I've been doing with schools and faculties of education and colleges is the back end needs to look a little bit more robust than when I get there. So for example, we need to design a sustainable culture plan. We need to create cross-functional working groups, meaning it's not just one person, as we know, who can actually carry this out. We need to build operational systems. So if I ask the questions, where are your files? Where do you house them? What systems are you working on? Are you in Google Drive? Are you in Teams? We need to have answer to these. We need to establish goals and timelines. We need to measure alignment to the vision, mission, and values that the school or the system says that they want to achieve. And then we need to create a scorecard or some kind of measurement device to track our progress so that we can tweak and measure and repeat. Next slide, please. So I believe that schools thrive. This is slide number 4 with the Venn diagram.
Oh, yep.
Thank you. I believe that schools thrive when culture and operations work together. So they go hand in hand. We cannot have culture without operations, and we cannot have the operational part without culture. Our values become meaningful when they are reflected in everyday decisions and practices. And the opportunity before us is to intentionally design cultures where every member of the community can succeed. And then Dr. Abeng, the final slide, please. And so what I'd like to ask the panel to think about today is, are we able to create more spaces like the one we're in right now, where we can actually talk about some of the challenges that we may be facing when the focus seems to be on culture only without a lot of discussion on all of the supports that's needed to make that culture happen? And I would like to invite the panelists to just maybe reach out to me afterwards if we would like to continue this conversation. Thank you.
Excellent. So I want you to repose that question in a minute to the panel, because that's a good question. But a question for you is, and you gave me some good examples. You talked about strategy, systems, and I forget something else you talked. But we talk about systems. What do you mean by, what is a system? What is a system in this context in terms of culture, and what is culture? Like, how does culture fit into a system? Like, I don't.
Yes. So for me, if someone were to say to me, okay, AJ, what do you mean by systems? I should be able to walk into any educational setting and I should be able to see what I call artifacts. So do you have your minutes? Do you have a plan? Do you have a working plan for what you're hoping to do this year with respect to culture? Once that plan is achieved, what are you hoping to do the following year and the year after that? can I go back into your system and can I see what you've done over the last 5 years? What I tend to see is, oh, we just did this for Black History Month. Or, oh, right, I think we did something relating to Diwali, but 9 times out of 10, they can't show me what that is because maybe that rests with one person. And then if that teacher leaves, the information leaves. And the school has no institutional memory for how all of those cultural pieces happened. And what I'm basically saying is we need to create a system where I can actually take what we've created and pass that on to someone else so that when I leave that institution, someone else can actually come in and see and have a record of what, not only what we did, but what the vision was behind it. So that's what I mean by those systems.
Okay. Anyone want to elaborate on that or comment on that?
I'll say really quickly, I greatly appreciate those comments. The whole notion of the things we do in school lying in the responsibility of the people in classrooms who then leave, that impacts culture. To become part of the culture, it has to become infused in what the school or the community does. And I know you would probably agree with this, that we know culture eats strategy for breakfast. Strategy means nothing if you don't have culture.
100%.
That's right. It has a huge impact. Now you had a question you wanted to pose to the panelists. You want to repeat that question? Dr.
Yeah, the question was, Superintendent Obeng, is it possible for us to create a space? I'm looking to create a space where we can do this more intentionally, meaning obviously today we've got the space where we could talk about it, but I'd like to create a space where I could be in a room with other practitioners who can say, you know what, I too have felt like I'm being given a task, but I'm literally building the plane as I'm flying it. So if you say to me, you want for us to do X, but then there are no minutes, there are no files, there's absolutely nothing. I now have a task to do, but I'm also now building everything that's needed for that task. And for me, that tends to be the biggest challenge that I face with respect to the issues, because everything the panelist has said to this point is true. We need to be thinking about belonging. We need to be thinking about identity. All students need to feel that they're welcomed. But if the work starts and then fizzles and then starts and then fizzles, teachers are so extremely busy. I'm not sure a teacher will want to continually start and stop things when their schedules increasingly aren't even allowing for them to begin those initiatives in the first place.
Excellent. So I'm thinking about that in terms of where we're going. One of the things that, our mission, TWI group, is to bring leaders together to have those conversations. Hence, our follow-up in November will be teams and groups come together and the challenging questions like that and action planning in terms of moving forward, right? In terms of doing that. So that's great. So you can comment that, move that. LaShawn, any thoughts or comments based on what you've heard from your colleagues right now?
Yes, it's been great to hear all of this wonderful information and knowledge, definitely from two great educators. And, just kind of thinking about what AJ was just sharing about, the classroom and teachers feeling like, it too shall pass. If it starts and stops, they're not really fully present, if you will, when people are bringing this up, because they're like, oh, there's no meat to it. It's not going to go any further. And so how do we help to, set the stage for that and to value that? And that's the big piece. I think if we're going to take time and we're putting something in front of teachers, we're telling them we value this. And this is part of what we want to see for our students and staff. And so it's a non-negotiable. To me, it's something that it has to be done. That creates a culture and climate for growth. And it's very important for our students. We're planting the seeds. And if those seeds aren't planted, it's hard for things to grow and flourish. And this is why we have some young folks today that are a lot older that don't know when you're talking about certain things because no one ever told them. And that's really unfortunate. How do we with intentionality? And we can see that vertical alignment. So, it starts off in elementary and goes on.
so they can build on that. I mean, I have some students that are now adults that it's amazing what they took away from my classroom. And it's not the things that you necessarily thought, but that sense of connection is so valuable. You can't put a price tag on it because they are showing you that by their, the next generation, by making those connections for them.
Right. So that's great. I'm glad you talked about the how. We talk about the what and the hows, right? And we speak a lot about the what. We need to do this, we need to do that, whatever. But the how is where it happens, the implementation of it and how you do it. And context means everything. Anybody want to elaborate on some strategies around the hows? Do we actually make that happen within schools, school districts, or school entities? Thoughts?
I just want to throw something out. I believe that from a culture and community or a DEI perspective, inclusion and belonging perspective, I believe that we need to be at the table right at the start. So right now I'm at Alquin School in Dallas, Texas, and I've been part of their strategic planning meetings over the past couple of weeks. And what's different about this experience is that typically I get brought in after that strategic planning. Those sessions have already taken place and the framework is already set. So I think part of the how, and as teachers, we're always doing backwards planning for the year anyway. For me, part of the how is, can we start early? Meaning, let's not wait until September when, it's just so busy. And now the idea is, okay, is just something that I have to squeeze in? Is it possible for us to think about it early so that now it becomes foundational to the work that we're asking teachers and educators to do?
Right.
Not an afterthought.
Right.
Melvin, did you want to add to that, or?
Yeah, I think from a broad standpoint, we could certainly that makes incredible sense. I wasn't sure if the question was coming from the standpoint of what schools could do on a regular basis to address that. Is that where we're going as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some specific practical.
Sure.
You got the macro to the micro,
Yep.
So let's look at the micro as well, too, right?
To me, belonging is the most important thing that happens in schools. And the kids, the higher your sense of belonging across the board for all students, I think the higher your student achievement. So in my book, I actually provide some strategies about what that might look like, how you develop affinity groups in schools so that kids have folks that are common to their experience who can demonstrate how to overcome things that happen outside and inside of school together. I mentioned earlier how we set up adults to work specifically with schools in their best interest or with kids to understand where they're coming from and what their issues might be. In terms of pedagogy, how we go about making sure students' identity across our student populations is infused into the curriculum. I know there's some work being done out there to erode all that work. We've got to continue to push on it. Yes, our babies need to see themselves in the curriculum. That has to happen. I think we also have to be very intentional about how we match students to teachers. There are teachers with certain skill sets that don't necessarily translate to kids from certain backgrounds, and some that do it extremely well. So how do we match those things up? In my book, I talk a lot about my fifth grade teacher, Mr. Walter Williams, who had such an impact on my life. He was my first Black male teacher. And had I not had him in my life, I am 99.9999% certain I wouldn't be sitting where I am, because he had that kind of impact to make me realize who I was and what I could be. Not enough of that happens in schools. We strive for proficiency, and proficiency is a floor, not a ceiling. We have to get kids beyond proficiency and getting to understand the practicality of what they learn in pedagogy and how that translates to real world context for themselves and for what they give to their communities. Our kids need to see the purpose for learning. Really simple. If they don't understand why they learn stuff, then why are they coming to school?
Yeah.
So I think there are a lot of things we can do from a specific standpoint in schools to address those. And my book really talks about identifying those issues, telling some stories from my childhood about that in terms of how I experienced it, and then providing some resources and strategies for schools to implement to address those things.
Excellent. And when we know that every student deserves a champion, right? And that makes it different. So we all probably have different people, whether in the school or adjacent to a school. But in today's demanding educational landscape, how can school leaders help overwhelmed teachers? They're the front lines, maintain the champion mindset and build deep connection with every single student. They get so overwhelmed with everything else, especially if you're in a hard to serve area, they feel taxed. How can we help educators, not just teachers, but I mean educators all along the line in keeping that mindset? I'll start with you, LaShawn, because I know you've had some varied experiences in your journey as well. So.
I think, one of the things too is making sure we're filling their bucket as far as educating them as well. Because I think sometimes it's like the rat race, we're on the wheel, and sometimes we forget to really look. We forget to really get a sense of where our children are and how they are feeling. And so I always look at it as sometimes we have to walk in order to run. And so in order to run, we need to make sure they have the things that they need. And for some teachers, we're all coming to the table with different experiences. We are. How can we value the experiences that we have and giving them the time to be able to do that? So that means like staff meetings or other things. How are we making sure that we're building in time? I know we all have a lot that's going on that we have to do, but how can we carve out a niche and for them to see that we are valuing this? Because if they are seeing that we're making time as administrators for this dialogue, this conversation, then they tend to start doing that as well. They tend to start building some things in place for their classrooms, for their students, as well as for parents, making that connection. And also being able to take a risk. Sometimes we try to stay in the box, and sometimes, there's some things that we need to do that may not fit in the box, and that's all right. And for them to know that they have support for that. And so for me, I kind of look at it as I have to lead by example in order to be able to show them that. And if I show them that, then they know that it's okay to do that, and that the expectation is that we keep moving forward for the betterment of our students.
Thank you. Any comments on that too, AJ?
I wanted just to touch on what Dr. LaShawn mentioned, because I feel like I need to speak truth to power to say that there's a lot of fear right now amongst teachers. There's a lot of fear right now amongst even what Dr. Brown mentioned about affinity groups. Teachers are feeling a little bit, not all teachers, but some teachers are feeling a little bit immobilized. Like, I'm afraid to do X because I don't know what's going to happen. I'm afraid to make a mistake. I'm afraid to start a club that has the word African American in it. This situation, I believe, is a situation that requires us to have some real deep conversations about how we can meet teachers where they are, but how we need to also be thinking about what's the broader climate that we're in, and what might that fear be doing? What might be going underground if teachers are feeling like, if I do something, I might end up on the front page of the newspaper. Like, these are conversations that I'm actually having or have had with teachers in the past. And I think that forums like this one, where I can actually reach out and speak to other educators, are important, because I can't do it alone. Like, I've got to reach across the table to say, what have you been finding? What has been working for you at your school? What are some best practices that I can take away and work with my institution on? So I just wanted to throw that in, because I think that there's a lot of fear right now.
Right. And this work is heavy. It's political at times. I mean, it's always political, I should say. I mean, I had a superintendent of mine that said, those who mix politics and education are fools, and those who ignore politics and education are damn fools. Right? So, I always try to remember that. And LaShawn, you shared that educators must work together and collaboratively for the betterment of students and families to boost achievement, right? So how can schools, and I'm going to address this to you, Melvin, to start first, because you've dealt with a lot of schools. How can schools break down the department silos so that academic collaboration and inclusive collaboration extends beyond the school walls and truly partners with families, right? That family partnership that we need. And we know, and especially in those hard to serve areas, we have to find ways to continue to engage the families in these pieces, right? So you've got the floor, Melvin.
We have to get back to what is the purpose for learning. When we ask ourselves that question, is it to pass standardized tests so our reading scores look better? No, that's not the purpose of learning. That's a result of learning. The purpose is so kids understand that this pedagogy they receive is to follow them into the world for the next 50, 60 years of their lifetime so they can be contributing members of society. So as far as how we cross those silos and get people to understand, if I'm teaching a particular concept in English, which I'm an English teacher, so I'm a shout out all my English teachers. That same concept can carry over to social studies. And now we're talking about themes, and kids now see all of these things work together for them to be better citizens learning this material. And the funny part about that is if you do it, your test scores improve. And this is what people, we're so busy chasing test scores, we ignore how to get there. You don't ever see a football team go into a game and say, okay, we need to score 6 touchdowns to win this game. No, they talk about how they're going to execute getting those 6 touchdowns, whatever that might be. So I think we have to have conversations across disciplines so we understand how lesson plans can be immersed together to present. I think teachers, one of the things I used to do, and I was very fortunate the way my school was set up, our leadership thought about it from this standpoint, was how I could co-teach with a social studies teacher the same concept in English and social studies. Now kids are seeing not only adults working together collaboratively, which is something they need to learn, but they're also seeing the curriculum come together to present. And then, 2 people are going to be bringing 2 different perspectives in the room. Now we've broadened the base of what they're going to receive in the context in which they're going to receive it. We have to be more intentional about that so that we're not so stuck on teaching our content. We don't teach content. We teach kids. We teach kids content. They receive it through us, but we have to make sure we're teaching the kids. And it's based on their needs. I'm not going to go through a curriculum from page 1 to page 300 simply to pour this into a child and hope that they can regurgitate it on a test. I want them to learn it practically from the standpoint of how do A, B, and C line up so it makes sense to them when they go home tomorrow or this afternoon, or when they become a high school graduate, or when they aspire to go to college, or when they get their first job. We have to be thinking about it from that standpoint, and we're completely missing the boat about what school is supposed to do. The conversation about test scores is about sorting kids, categorizing schools, and competing people against each other. And that's not what education is supposed to be about. Yes, it's all political, no question about it, but we also have to be strategic and savvy about how we push back on that politics, because we have our own we can bring into the room and make people say what they mean. So, when we're talking about diverse populations and people don't want the Black boys to learn, I'm going to make them say they don't want Black boys to learn. You have to give them accountability for the things that they say. That has to be important in terms of what this work looks like.
That reminds me, let's talk a little bit about special education, because special education in jurisdictions has different connotations, right? And I know in one jurisdiction I worked in, there are certain groups that were automatically put into special ed, even though that wasn't really their need, right? They just had some challenges or they had lack of schooling. How do we talk about special education, and how do we find a way to have those students and those families feel included in the process? You want to start with that, LaShawn?
Voice. To me, as you were talking, their voice needs to be heard. And so sometimes, I have found having smaller parent groups to be able to just kind of give them a platform to be able to share with you what they're feeling, what's going on. Because I can't assume that I know or I understand if I haven't taken the time to really hear them. The goal is we want the kids to be successful, and we're not trying to put them in a box. We're not trying to put a label on them. Statistically, we know the numbers of how many minorities, especially males, are put in special ed. And so with that, being able to speak to that, and the goal is educate them. We want them to be successful. What is their niche? What do they like to do? So for me, I always like to start with having conversations and empowering those who are at the table to share what they would like to share. So I then have the tools to be able to help them, hopefully, to move their child forward to the best of my ability.
Very good, very good, very good. All right, so we've got Well, I'll give you one more comment before I give you your last statement on if you want to follow up on that question there. Is anyone?
Yeah, I do. We talk about special education and how our kids in particular are given a lifetime sentence in that program. And those comment. Special education is supposed to provide you with devices to level the playing field so that you eventually become not a student on an IEP. Instead, a child is diagnosed in third grade with a particular disability and given an IEP, and that thing follows them until they graduate. It's not supposed to look like that. And I think we've become too accustomed to letting that occur. We have to ask ourselves why students aren't learning in class. And sometimes it's not about their inability to learn. It's about the fact that they don't see the relevance. They don't see why it applies to them. Therefore, they're disinterested and disconnected. And if we can hook them and give them ways of where the relevance is and seeing what that means to them, they're going to be more prone to learn. And then wrapping in parents, I wanted to say this earlier, and it slipped my mind. I think it's important. I think in many ways, we've often disrespected the lived experience of parents. And we say to them that your lifestyle is not welcome here. You have to be like us. Our kids are just as resilient as any kid that might come from a 2-parent household in a 6-income household. They're just as resilient, but they look different. In fact, I would say they're more resilient because they have to overcome so many more obstacles in many respects. We don't honor those things. So when kids come to school, I was a single parent, a child, the product of a single parent. And often I came to school thinking I wasn't good enough because of what my childhood looked like. Many of our kids come in the doors like that, and we have to honor their experiences and make them understand that they're just as important as anyone else. There's a movement in Ohio right now to talk about what a traditional household looks like and the financial benefits of it. And I get the understanding, but I think it dishonors kids' lived experiences. They have to say that they're important as well. So our parents have to have, and we mentioned this earlier, voice is so important. How do we listen to our parents? We come up with ideas of what we think our parents need, but we never ask them what they need.
Yeah, and it's the same thing we do with students, right? We always tell them what they need, but we don't ask the questions. Let me bring this to a bit of a close. So I'm going to give you each a last. This whole section, this session was about the culture, social belonging, and the underbelly of education. How do we build that environment to foster success? So give me an opportunity to have your last statement as we're exiting out around this. And I'll start with you, AJ, since you haven't had a chance. So go ahead. So
again, thank you for the opportunity. My last thoughts, for me, culture and community is extremely important now more than ever. And I believe it's important for us to continue having these spaces to really prioritize the challenges that we're facing. As you mentioned earlier, Superintendent Obang, the work is very demanding. It's also very challenging. It's also politically fraught. And I believe that we need to lean on each other and help each other through the best practices so that the work can be sustained. And I really thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you for joining us. Melvin?
I would say trusted partners in this work is important. We have to have spaces where we can have courageous conversations and from a strategic standpoint, know how to help each other go into the field and execute those ideas. We have to take risks because we understand that we learn from risks. When we make mistakes, we learn from those mistakes. As far as what we do to combat our political environment, I think we have to be more. I think we have to be much bolder. We have to be able to demonstrate and say what we need, what our kids need, because we're on the front lines with them every day. Mm-hmm. I talk about that in my work. I've talked about that in my book, and I think when we work together strategically to execute those things, we get better outcomes together. So we have to we have to push back on these narratives that are out there.
Very good. Thank you. And LaShawn, you get the last word.
Oh, thanks. Thank you very, very much. This has been really, really great. I've enjoyed being here today, and I echo a lot of the same things that other panelists have said. I go back to the quote, every child deserves a champion. And how do we have some intentionality around the work that we do? Sometimes people leave things like, oh, yeah, I'm just going to do this. No, people need to really think, be strategic about how they're rolling things out, because if it does not go well, you're going to have to do double time the next time. So if we're going to do it together, collaborate, connect,
and work together and hear the voices of everyone. Be great.
Thank you. And let me wrap up with a couple of information items. So for those of you who are listening, and we've just started this conversation, and we plan to move the conversation in November at Clearwater Beach in Florida. So please join us on November 16th, 17th, where we'll have an opportunity to get deeper in some of these questions. And we'll have educational teams come together to develop action plans to go out and take action on some of these things that we've been talking about. And it's enough of the what we need to do. So we'll get to some of the hows, but we'd love to have you there. Great environment, and to share with your colleagues across the country, if not other parts of North America as well too. And then finally, I want to give myself a shameless plug. So my book, Calculated Risk: Leadership Lessons and Stories, can be bought on Amazon. And I have a framework called CRISP Decisions, all about decision making. Everything we're talking about today has to do with making decisions. And it's sort of memoirs. It chronicles some of my stories and decisions that I've made and others have made in terms of critical steps in finding success in education and elsewhere. So thank you so much, all of you, Melvin, LaShawn, and AJ, for joining us. Hopefully we get a chance to see you in November as well too, face to face. That'd be great to have you there. But thank you for participating in this, and please join us. Our next session is about TomoClub. Our partners are going to get a chance to share some of their resource, and so people will be able to take a look at that, and we'll give opportunities how we can get more information on that as we move forward. But have a great day and have a great summer. Don't forget, summer is time for renewal, and some of you I know already started back up already. But we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Hi, y'all. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How you doing? I see you're working away there.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you so much for this great opportunity, and I'm loving the session.
Thank you guys for you've done a great job, and Suresh has been amazing. So I'm learning a lot. So that's great. So for the next stop and giving us some ideas for November in terms of how we can do it even better. And I'm getting some good responses. I've had challenges getting people onto the right links, but it's okay. We'll have the video hopefully to share.
Absolutely. Perfect.
All right. You're gonna start in about a minute, I guess. You wanna?
I think I can start now.
Oh, okay. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
let me introduce you. So this is Avinash. Avinash is one of the leaders of TomoClub. partnering with us on this endeavor. And they've done a number of initiatives nationwide and working with different districts all across the nation and working with technology and AI and curriculum innovation. So we're pleased to partner with you and have you here and the support you've given us. So looking forward to a continued partnership as we move forward. And here's an opportunity to share with the rest of our community what you guys are doing. And hopefully people can follow up and get more information that specifically supports their school districts or their schools or their educational entities. So I'll turn it over to you.
Absolutely. Can you let my screen be shared? I'm not sure. Is it visible to you guys?
Is it not? Okay, let's see.
Is it visible now?
I think it.
Yes, we're seeing future-ready students.
Yeah, we see, yeah, future-ready students start with future-ready schools, right?
Perfect. So hi guys, I'm Avinash. I'm one of the co-founders at TomoClub, and I am really excited about this conference that we are doing today and the upcoming offline conference as well. What a beautiful timing. My mom just called. Okay. So guys, TomoClub basically helps schools prepare for tomorrow. But the question is, why do we even exist? Like schools have a lot to manage, for a very long time curriculum changed slowly enough for teachers to build expertise and schools to adapt, but some fields right now are moving faster than ever. What school needs to know about AI or future ready skills, they are changing within months or even weeks, and it's making it difficult for schools and teachers to keep up. This is exactly where Tomo Club comes in. We work alongside schools as a K-12 implementation partner, and we bring the expertise and the agility and the on-ground support needed for the schools to remain relevant as new and new technologies and new strategies are coming across. And I know I'll just quickly show you our three offerings. We do professional development for teachers on AI, student AI literacy program for middle school and high school, and future ready skills. And I want to show you how it looks like on classroom setup. Can you hear the voice when the video plays?
Depending on the aliens' moods, if they're sad, you should probably give them something to make them happier.
How has Tomo Club been for you?
Here we always communicate, even in the breakout rooms, we to find a strategy.
Team up.
I think that that was good, but instead of just yelling at each other, now that we just been communicating more, so instead of yelling at each other, we listen to each other and take it in so we know what to do in the game.
And I just shout out everybody for being so amazing and great.
1. Lucas Samuel, how'd you get 684 points?
We only had to drown one person. Think about what kind of empathy you can use for your teammates before we jump into the next round.
When someone is sad, you can lift them up and make them happier.
This whole session is just trying to teach us life lessons, but through games.
Yeah, this is one of the products that we do, life lessons through games, and it's a multiplayer setup, so students play together. I am super proud to show you one of the testimonials that we have got it. So this is one of the school we work with, and they say that the school sense of belongingness has actually gone up. The disruptions have gone down because students are starting to collaborate more. Even the critical thinking part, I was working with one of the schools, Veseka, and it has shown a positive impact on reading and math. So that is the power of life skills that you want to show. Second product, second cool video that I want to show you. This is the AI literacy curriculum that we do for middle school and high school. And I'll show you one of the sessions in which students are actually learning how to create music using AI. And it's a very structured curriculum mapped to all the standards right now, whether it's AI 4K12, ISTE, or UNESCO. And let me show you this video.
Today, we are going to dig a bit deep into music. The guitar is being played by humans. Many of the instruments AI generated every single part of it. Today, we are going to understand how that is possible and what makes something authentic. AI can also learn to hear and to speak in the same way. So instead of images, it's trained on millions of audio recording AI tools that can create full-fledged songs. It can also clone your voice. Say there is a bit of background noise coming in. You want to remove background, only keep the audio. That one thing is also being done with the help of AI. Wow, that was cool. AI comes in, it can recognize your voice, it can clone your voice. Now it can also create a recording of saying something you never said. So what could go wrong then? The mother in Arizona who received a phone call from a voice that sounded exactly like her daughter. And they were trying to ask for money there. But she was good enough to understand that it might sound like her daughter, but it's not her daughter, and she got saved. But imagine if these things kind of keep on happening, that would be disastrous, isn't it?
Yeah. So this in the AI literacy program, we cover up a lot of things, whether it is awareness about how to use AI, to AI in different careers, AI tools, and most important part is ethics, that how do you keep your critical thinking aligned and relevant in the age of AI. So this is one of the testimonial we got about our AI literacy program, that this is one of the students, like before this program, I used AI just to get answers. Now I understand how it works. So I question what it tells me and I use it responsibly. Similarly, this is beautiful comment from a high school, that I use AI for ideas, but the thinking part is mine. So teaching students not only how AI works, how to use AI, but how to use it responsibly. That's one of the important part. Third program that I want to show you is the teacher development part, because if teachers are the one who will use AI and understands AI, then only they can pass it on to their students, whichever grade level they are. I'm going to show you this part.
I would completely recommend it. I think that in the world of education, it comes in different avenues, right? It comes from staff, it comes from students, it comes from community. And I think it's important to know, one, how to utilize AI in ethical ways to increase your success and your performance in your job, but also finding ways to support students and to build resources for students in AI on a teacher's schedule is an incredible resource that we never would have had before. And so recognizing the power that AI has for us as educators is something that I think we're still in the middle of.
Perfect. Thank you so much for this. Yeah, I'll show you the quick testimonial as well. So this was the principal again, that post AI training, she could actually see teachers sharing new tools and strategies in the corridor. One of the important part while working with the school district in Illinois was how will we personalize these modules to their needs. And the training has to be more hands-on. It cannot be like a one-way street. So the entire professional development has to be so interactive. So yeah, I think that's one of the key part. I'm just going to end it here. Whenever we work with any school district, our first step is actually to deep dive into how school works. Then we tailor the proposal according to their needs, and then we go on an implementation. So yeah, that's how we make sure that we are more consultants in our approach rather than one fit for all, I would say, as a company. So yeah, anybody who is looking at this and they're looking to bring in a better strategy on AI implementation at the teacher, staff, and student level, and future-ready skills through games and engagement, it will be fun to talk. So looking forward. Thank you so much.
All right, Avinash, thank you so much. I got a question for you. So I love your platform, and I love the way you've got something for teachers and for students separately, because often there's not enough attention spent, especially on students, to have that. Tell me something that what are your districts? I know you've had a great maturation and development over the last year, different districts coming on. When districts first start using your materials, what's one good thing that they're saying about it that they're finding is helpful?
Okay, so the first thing is about policy right now. So a lot of school districts have to navigate the federal structure as well as the state level policies. So they're like, we cannot build a school policy unless our teachers have the understanding of it. So I think the first most important, I would say, actionable steps for school leaders is having that discussion from every teachers at different levels of what should be allowed and what should not be, and how classroom instruction has to be managed and how assessment has to be done. So I think that's definitely one of the first thing that we always hear back when we talk to school leaders after 2 months of working with them.
Excellent. Well, you guys doing a great job, and we really enjoy our partnership and look forward to continue to work with you further. I know some of our panelists already asked about what you guys specifically do, so I'm definitely going to make some connections so we can have an opportunity for you to kind of share more deeper how you can support them as well too. All right.
Perfect. Thank you. It's been great. Looking forward to the next round of discussion.
Yes. So we're moving on to the next session, and we've got I think I've got everybody on here so far. Let me just double check to make sure we've got everybody who we need to have on here. 1, 2, 3, okay. And all right. So let's do a mic check to make sure I got everybody. Eric, you there? Eric?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Perfect. I can see you and I can hear you.
Excellent.
Millicent, you there?
Good morning. Yes, I'm here. I can hear
Excellent.
you and see you. Thank you.
And Betty, you there?
Good morning. Yes.
Okay, and Dominic is there. Right?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Okay, so we're going to start in 10 seconds. All right. Okay, we've got our next group of panelists. This is great. I'm Yao Bang. I'm a former CEO, superintendent, author, but most importantly, your moderator for this session. We just had a great session previously with a group talking about climate and building self-belonging and inclusion, and leads us right into your session around curriculum innovation and achievement and innovation. So happy to have a great group of panelists here. Just to let you know, we're streaming through YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook around the world. And we've got participants from speakers from US and Canada, and we have some other global partners who are on here. But I'm happy to partner with TomoClub, who is infusing AI and technology into our schools and partnering with us on this project. So looking forward to the discussions. And the way to lay the land, just to give you guys, we're going to introduce each of you individually, give you a chance to make your statement with your slides, and then we'll go into some questions and have a discussion among the group. Okay, so that sound good? So let's start with, I'm going to start with, what am I starting with? Millicent, Dr. Millicent Borched. I'm going to start. Let's start with you. Let me do your introduction, and then we'll get started. So Dr. Millicent Borched is an educational leader and superintendent with nearly 30 years of experience improving urban public schools across Illinois, Washington, Missouri. Her work centers on student achievement, equity, family engagement, and systems that help every learner succeed. And she's also an exceptional human being. So welcome, Dr. Borshad, Millicent. And I'm going to queue up your slide, and then we can get you started. Okay. There we go. There you go. That's your slide, right?
Yes, it is. Thank you so much for having me this morning. I am so excited about the opportunity to share some things about data-driven decisions and building the portrait of a graduate. So when you think about the true north of educating our children, can you go to the next slide?
Sure.
When you think about the true north of educating our students in the classrooms and in the district, it's important to have a shared vision for student growth and development towards graduation that prepares our students for college and or career. How is that done? Through what I call the public education promise. What is the public education promise? So when you think about that, it leads me to what I consider the portrait of a graduate and how it shapes the things that we need to do. So when I was working with the portrait of a graduate and developing it, it was important that we had the administrators, the classroom teachers, parents, and students involved in this, developing this shared vision for student growth. And so some of the things that we looked at were, what are some of the competencies that we want our students to have? It's important that they are socially and emotionally developed. And it is also important that we build upon that. And so we thought about the 7 attributes that we wanted our students to have. We want them to be competent. So no matter what is happening around them, no matter what is happening in the world, are they competent enough to walk through any situation? We want them to be culturally aware because our world is no longer a melting pot. It's a salad bowl. And when you think about a salad bowl, that means we have to embrace, we have to love, we have to learn from and understand everyone's perspective. We want them to be collaborators because no matter what you do, if you're in college, if you're working in the workforce, you're going to be collaborating with other people. We want them to be great communicators. It is so important that even though we understand the language, English language, we don't always understand the sentiments of what someone is saying. So we want them to be great communicators. And it is so, so important that all of our students are critical thinkers. So whenever they hear something, they understand what the spoken agenda is, they understand what the unspoken agenda is, they understand how to take information and synthesize it, they understand how to build upon. Can you go back just for a few minutes? They understand how to think and not just survive, but thrive in the world. We want them to also be change agents. When things happen to them, how can they use all of the skills to change the things so that it works for them in a healthy way? And then from there, we want them to be college and career ready. Okay, next slide.
Thank you.
Okay, so how does that happen? When you think about curriculum and assessment and the alignment First of all, we have to think about, you know, what our researchers have said. The fours come to mind, and we think about those 4 questions. But how do we prepare our students for those 4 questions? First of all, we as educators have to understand the Common Core. We have to understand the PARC. We have to understand the standards that our students need to understand and learn. And so how do we do that? We as the educators, we as the adults, we have to be ready to make sure that our curriculum and our assessments are aligned to what it is our students need to know. Then we take that data, we take our beginning of the year assessments, we take our middle of the year assessments, and we build upon that. We look at that. We help our students set goals. When they set goals, then they know what it is that they have to do. They know what it is that they're learning, so that when it comes to the middle of the year assessments, that they see themselves improving. And what we have to teach our students is that whether you're in school or you're at work, you're always being assessed on where you are in terms of the goal. And from there, if our students are not necessarily learning, how do we make sure that we give our students the right support? And that comes from knowing our students by name, strength, and need. When we know our students by name, strength, and need, we use that as a foundation of creating and adding to the whole child. My next slide.
Sure.
And then what is so important is that all of our schools, as they continue to develop school improvement plans, that they know what each student needs. They know what each demographic, I hate to use the word subgroup, but each student demographic. Each data point represents a student and what they need to know in reference to them being successful in the world. So I want to just close by saying it's important that we make sure that our students understand the promise of the education. It's also important that we as educators make sure that our students are able to move through what those 4 questions are. What is it that our students need to know? How will we know that our students have learned them? What do we do when our students have not learned? And how do we keep students motivated when they need to be in IB classes or AP classes and learn beyond what is in the classroom? And then making sure that we monitor what it is that our students are learning through learning labs or classroom observations, and giving our teachers bite-sized feedback so that they can make sure to use that in developing our students. And
Excellent.
if students do not learn the way we teach, we must teach the way they learn.
You mentioned that you're always being assessed. Sounds like some lessons from my mother or something. You're always being assessed.
Always, always.
So,
whether you know it or not, when you walk into a room,
not.
you're being assessed.
Yeah, so among the 7 traits, Dr. Borchardt, you included competencies like culturally aware, collaborator, change agents. While core academic skills are easier to measure, how can curriculum teams effectively track data and growth on these more human-centric, actionable graduation traits, right?
Yeah. So great question. When you think about competence, when you think about critical thinkers, are our students able to make inferences? When you think about reading comprehension, you have to be able to decode, you have to be able to make inferences, things that are right there in plain text, but then there are some things that are not explicitly stated within the text. And so how do we teach our children to make inferences, which is a core attribute that a student would need academically?
Nice, thank you. Okay, we're going to come back to that, talk a bit more, because I'm sure your colleagues will have some thoughts around that as well too. I'm going to shift to introduce Dominic Georgie. Dominic is a superintendent of education in the Toronto District School Board, which has, over 400,000 students, I believe, and a senior academic leader overseeing 26 K-12 schools, a former principal and recognized Canadian educator, great Canadian educator. He brings experience in school leadership, administrator training, and student success. Welcome, Dominic. And I'm going to queue up your slide, Dominic, and then you can do your intro and we'll get you going here.
Thank you, y'all. While you're queuing that up, thank you. I'm coming from Toronto, Canada. So happy to be able to be on this call. I've been following this morning's presentations and really happy and impressed to hear all the various speakers talking today. Such a great day for education and for good discussion. So today I'm going to talk to you about school improvement planning. We are the 4th largest board in North America, serving 250,000 students. We're behind districts like New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago. And so really happy to be able to speak today on just one of the many elements of my role as a superintendent. And so I'll just share a few slides that has to do with school improvement planning. Some of it overlaps with some of the great speakers that have already spoken, and I'm sure may overlap with some of the other speakers. Next slide, please. So today, I'm talking about what is it that our school classrooms need to move students. We've noticed in our district, a lot of the achievement levels have been stagnant over the years. And so really trying to zero in on what is it that our classrooms need so that there can be good impact on learning, on student achievement. And so we're going to talk just briefly about why it is that we're where we are and what are some really important improvements moving forward. Next slide, please. So we belong into a larger system with many districts across North America. We are one of many different facets and components. And so when we talk about why we do school improvement planning, in Toronto, we're part of a larger provincial ministry, which would be very similar to what many states might have. So we have priorities that the ministry sets on individual cities and districts. We also have a board strategic direction, which will identify some areas of goals and strengths that we have within our districts. We also have individual school plans that align with ministry and our board directions. And from there, we usually try to pick out the high yield classroom strategies so that we can achieve the improved student outcomes. Next slide, please. So one of the key questions, and we've heard it already this morning, if anyone was following from the beginning, is teaching is the single most important practice that is going to improve student achievement. Leadership through principles and central principles really is the second most important strategy. So what does instruction look like? And it's important to have that dialogue always front and center in all the meetings that we have, conversations that we have, and my role as a superintendent is to ensure that the principles that I support in a K-12 model are always keeping this front and center. Our ministry has really identified mathematics as the primary area of need, but we know that math and language are the two primary areas of focus. And so what the next two slides are going to talk about, and I'm not going to go through them all individually, but it's important for you to know that we do have high impact instructional practices that our teachers should be using in their classrooms on a daily and regular basis. And so the slide that's up right now really talks about what the ministry expects teachers to do. And so as a superintendent, I often ask questions of my principals. What does teaching look like at your school? And are you monitoring and navigating the classrooms so that the instructional practices reflect what the ministry and what the board is asking teachers to do? One of the things we've learned a lot, especially coming out of COVID, is that teachers like to go back to what they've always done, because they're creatures of routine and habit. And we need to make sure that we're moving the teaching practice to reflect some of the things that you see like on the screen. We talk often, about making sure that they're utilizing flexible groupings or culturally relevant and responsive pedagogy. A lot of teachers know these things, but they often will resort back to what they've always done. The other thing that we've noticed in our board, if you can just keep it back to the previous slide. One of the things we've noticed in our board and in our ministry is that all the curriculum has advanced since COVID. And so curriculum fidelity might seem like a very simple thing, but we need to remind our teachers that they can't go back to utilizing their textbooks or resources that they had 6, 7, 8, or 9 years ago. So ensuring that curriculum fidelity is really important to ensuring that alignment falls with our assessments. And I really appreciated listening to Dr. Borshade talk about data, because data is ultimately what's going to be used to drive practice and to support what it is that we need to do. And then the last couple of slides that we have up just talks a little bit about what are the roles when doing school improvement. Everybody has a role in a building, from the classroom educator, principal, and the superintendent. And so each role is identified so that they know what they're expected to do. And if you go to the last slide there, the last slide just really talks about the principal as the important instructional coach leading a school, and the superintendent who needs to ensure that there's system coherence that aligns with ministry and the board and the system and the district's key area goal. And one of the pieces that we've been doing a lot in our district is 4 to 6 week monitoring cycles, where we start an initiative and then we measure it through a 4 to 6 week cycle, so that we can then move to another initiative, constantly changing that landscape to ensure that people are moving and that students are moving. And finally, what I would say is, one key question I ask of principals, apart from the teaching practice, is, have you identified those students in your school who require the additional support to move forward? Who is staying stagnant? Who is not moving? Why are they not moving? What can we do to ensure movement? Do they know the names of these students? Do they have a profile of each of these students? Because if you don't know those students, then teachers will continue to teach to just masses and not to individuals. So that's it for me. Very happy to take on any questions.
Thank you, Dominic. And I'm sure that there were some very great lessons coming out of COVID. And you work in a large district, so there's a lot of impact and lots of moving pieces that happen. But I'd be interested in terms of your school improvement challenges, how can district leaders maintain system alignment without suffocating a school's ability to adapt to its unique student community? And when I was a principal, I always acted rogue at times, because I wanted to do something that maybe didn't quite fit into. So how do you address that alignment issue in a large district as yours?
Yeah, thank you. And let me acknowledge that piece around suffocation, because a lot of our principals and educators are tired. And there's a flow to the school year. And I think understanding the flow of a school year and knowing where there are moments to push and where there are other moments to kind of slow down. One of the tools that I had made very brief reference to when I was speaking is we've created an electronic tool that every single principal in our district, and we have 570 schools, every single principal has to input progress through pedagogical documentation, through actions that they've taken, what the results of those were. and they're collected in this database that then is reproduced for individual superintendents and system superintendents, who then analyze and read and try to track where there's progress and where there's stagnation. And this monitoring tool has been both helpful, but it has also added to more of the suffocation of our principals. So what we are doing as superintendents is we're actually building in time during our monthly meetings with principals, so that it's not an add-on work, it's actually part of our staff meetings that we do. So that monitoring tool has been the big shift in our board over the last 2 years.
Okay, great. Maybe we'll get a chance to dig a little deeper into that as we move forward. I want to move to introduce our my colleague, Dr. Betty Marchant, who is a teacher, but also at the highest level, at the university level, and has had some really impact both in the States and also doing some international work. But welcome, Betty. Dr. Betty Marchant is the Henrietta Francis Zula Lowalk Endowment Distinguished Professor at the University of Texas at San Antonio. Her work explores diversity educational reform, policy analysis, democratic school leadership, and international comparative research in education. Welcome, Dr. Marchant. All right, let me cue you up here, and then you can. That's a long title of to say there. Well, tongue twister. Should work on that a little bit. Let me.
No, that's a long title. The woman that it's named after was a lifelong educator. So yeah.
Well deserved. Well, here you go.
Oh, you dressed up the slides, put in something.
There you go.
Good for you. Thank you. Yes. So I've been working most recently in this area of, excuse me, accountability and responsibility of school administrators. And it's part of an international study that I'm working in as well. So what I've done is set up just a few slides talking about the Texas context within which administrators need to work. You may be familiar with it, but in case not, I've just put a couple of things in there. Beginning in 2020, the book bans became very famous in Texas. Many school libraries were emptied of their books until a committee had a chance to look at them and see whether they had any DEI content, diversity, equity, inclusion. Textbooks also were culled and thrown out if they had these things in them. Then a particularly interesting situation for principals and superintendents, as well as teachers, was introduced 2 years ago, 2024, the Blue Bonnet curriculum. And it sounds harmless enough. Blue bonnets is the state flower, the blue bonnet for Texas. But the curriculum is filled with Christian references, which have been contested by many people, including other Christians, because the Christian texts come from a particular edition of the Bible, which not all Christians adhere to. So although, excuse me, it's so hot here, my throat is so dry. Although it is an optional curriculum, the state provides districts up to $60 per student if they use it. And it's in language arts and math, which speaks to the previous speaker, superintendent, talking about the importance of these two subjects. And then, of course, in 2025, last year, all schools were required to display the 10 Commandments and I took the wording conspicuous place, and prayer and Bible study time are mandated if requested by any of the students. And then this year began the biggest cut to public schools in Texas, the private school voucher program. Over $10,000 for private schooling, up to $30,000 per student for students with disabilities, and $2,000 per student for those who are homeschooled. And on public school campuses, DEI programs are banned, and club activities are also banned that deal with sexual orientation and gender identity, or severely restricted. And so this year, for the first time in history, in the first state in the United States, the Texas Education Agency is generating a required reading list with Bible references for K through 12. So that's the context within which administrators are trying to do the kind of work that was just described by the previous two speakers. So we've looked at what happens with administrators who are faced with accountability and responsibility. We defined accountability as being accountable to external policies, performance measures, and so on. Responsibility, more internally driven, more ethically committed to what's right for students and families. And I think that's I just had a last few discussion questions. You know, what do they identify as essential for being successful? How do they distinguish between being responsible and accountable? And how do they explain these things in terms of their schoolwork? Of course, we're finding in Texas that many, many principals and superintendents are retiring or being fired for their advocacy for DEI.
Right.
So it just presents the context within which I think the discussion will occur today, doing the good work that's been mentioned by the previous two presenters.
Wow. Oh, thank you so much. You bring such a valuable perspective, Dr. Merchant, because, you know, all of us work in our own jurisdictions and may not be fully aware of what's happening elsewhere. And you think, oh, you're in a bad situation. Then you hear about some of these things. It's like, wow, these are some insurmountable challenges to education in Texas. Like, it's just, wow, I can't imagine what the educators are dealing with. So thinking about, you know, in your perspective, and you train leaders and educators at a doctoral level and at a principal level. So you have an opportunity to have an impact. But how can public school administrators balance their external accountability to follow state legislation with their ethical responsibility to support and protect all students in diverse community? I'm not sure that's a challenge that's happening on a regular basis there. Any thoughts on that?
To stay in the game, administrators need to adhere to, you know, the most obvious state mandates. And what the ones are doing that I'm working with, they're working in schools that are high poverty, low achievement, state always threatening to take them over. State's taken over many, as you know, including Houston. So the administrators that I know that are trying to deal with this are paying attention to student achievement, being very creative, working in teams with other administrators to strategize effective pathways. And they're working very much, again, I'm sorry. Let me take some water here.
Okay, I'm going to take a sip of my tea here. Hopefully,
they're working with the community.
That
That's where administrators have been able to you know, work effectively by really understanding, working with the community, getting their support, talking to the students, collaborating, so that it's not just the administrator who's trying to increase students' achievement or school performance, and actually finding code words. So everybody's getting really good at finding words, workarounds for diversity, equity, inclusion. And so saying community, working with community. And your community is diverse, so you're just working with the community. That's all that you're doing. So it's that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's too bad that we have to work so hard just to do these workarounds, where we could just put our energies in focusing on just pure student achievement of all students, right? In terms of
exactly
doing that. But okay, thank you. What we definitely want to explore that more, because that was the canary in the coal mine kind of thing, right? Because it's happening in one state, then other states start to pick up different pieces. So we need to be aware of that and have conversations around that too, how we can coalition build and strategize rather. But I want to bring my friend Eric on here, who brings a different perspective, which I think you'll enjoy. Eric, let me give you your little quick intro, and then I'll let you set yourself up there. Eric Cooney is a public school administrator with 20 plus years of experience across K-12 education, higher education, teacher development, and school leadership. He brings a global perspective to advancing inclusive schools, educator well-being, and student success. Eric also works in a francophone environment, which those of you not aware, in Canada, there's the French public schools as well, schools as well as the English. So he works in a French. So that's interesting to see what kind of challenges they bring on. So Eric, let me put up your slides, and then I'll give you an opportunity to illuminate more on your statement here.
Sounds good.
All right, I think I got the right one, right?
Yes, that's perfect. Thank you so very much, y'all. It's truly an honor for me to join this conversation. I would like to begin by thanking you and all the organizers for bringing together amazing education leaders at such an important conversation and work. As you said in my introduction, having served as a teacher, French language teacher, instructor.
I didn't do it properly. I should have started off by saying bonjour, comment ça va?
Yes, exactly. Well, as maybe you know this already, but French is my first language, so we could have just dived directly into French, but next time, okay, for sure. So again, my experience as a teacher, instructor at the university level, and school principal, but also having worked a lot with communities around Canada and internationally too. One of the things that has always come up as a fundamental truth to me remains that school flourish when people within them flourish as well. We can't separate that. So it's a simple belief that has shaped my work as an educator, as a leader, and now as a researcher too. So today I would like to invite us to reflect on a fundamental question. How do we intentionally build school cultures where both educators and students can thrive? And why this is very important, why this conversation really matters, is simply because the previous presenters mentioned this a lot. Every single day, educational leaders are navigating increasing complexity. Across our schools, we see educators experiencing burnout. We see students facing unprecedented levels of anxiety, uncertainty, and disengagement. We see principals, and was very happy to hear from Superintendent Giorgio there. We see principals and teachers, and of course, staff member who are asked to accomplish more than they're asked to accomplish a lot of work, but with fewer resources and less time. So it's becoming more challenging. So all these challenges put together, which are real, but one of the things that I want to bring forward is the fact that when too often we approach well-being and as an individual responsibility, as we do the work. So we encourage educators to be more resilient. We encourage students to take care of themselves. Yet we rarely ask whether the system we have created actually allow people to thrive. So for me, leadership in this sense today is no longer simply about improving achievement, but it's also about creating the conditions where excellence become sustainable. Because people perform at their best when they feel safe, when they feel valued, and when they feel connected and inspired. If you can go to the next slide, please.
Sure.
So here I want to bring forward the notion or the idea of 4 leadership commitments. So because for me, sustainable well-being is not another initiative. It's not another strategic plan. It's not another professional development session. It's a culture, and a culture is built simply by a leadership decision one day at a time. And I personally believe that healthy school cultures are grounded in these four leadership commitments. The first is psychological safety, what I call psychological safety. People learn best when they feel safe enough to ask questions, when they admit mistakes, and when they take risks and continue growing. And I think that innovation cannot exist where fear exists. If we want people to innovate, we have to make sure that they're psychologically safe. The second point is belonging. We talk a lot about belonging. Every student, every educator, every family, they actually need to understand that they need to know that they matter. They need to understand that they matter. Belonging is not created by a mission statement. It's beautiful when you put that there, but how do we really foster belonging? How do we create that? It is created through every single day's interaction. And the third point is resilience. Resilience, as I mentioned before, is not asking people to carry heavier burdens. It's really helping them to recover, to adapt, to grow together through challenges. And finally, the last point is purpose. When people understand that their work makes a meaningful difference, they remain very committed, and even during difficult times. So for me, purpose gives energy to perseverance. And when these four elements come together, well-being and excellence stop competing with each other. They begin reinforcing one another. I'll end up with an invitation on my last slide. It's really just, I'd like to leave with a simple question because I know we're going to dive into the discussions in a few minutes. So imagine that every leadership decision we make this school year had one objective: to strengthen the well-being of both educators and students. What will we begin doing? That's the first question. Second question is, what will we stop doing and what will we do differently? Because ultimately, school culture is not shaped by policies. It's shaped by the decision that we make every single day. And those decisions truly determine whether people merely survive or truly thrive. So in closing, I simply want to say, healthy schools are not built by chance. They are built by leaders who choose people before process, relationships before routines, and belonging before bureaucracy. Because when us educators thrive, students flourish, and when students flourish, communities flourish as well. So I think this is really the core of what we need to bring forward when we talk about achievement and making school communities better place for everybody.
Thank you. Yeah, you got posed a lot of questions that we could definitely get into. I appreciate the framing around those questions for us in terms of looking at what we as leaders can do. I'm curious, in your specific situation, being in a francophone school, I always wondered this: do you have the other cohorts, like in the English public sector? Like, do you have, I wouldn't say ESL because English is not the first language, it's French. So it would be FSL, French as a second language. Is there, what's the level of special ed? What does that look like? And what are the challenges with that? And any other cohorts that impact your jurisdictions as opposed to the public? Could you comment on that a little bit, Eric?
Yeah, as you know, the structure of the French board is not completely different from what we experience with TDSB or with Halton District School Board. Of course, the linguistic difference, which is the main language of instruction being French, simply reinforces that. First of all, the identity piece, which is good. But now, when it comes to these different programs that you mentioned, within the French board, the Francophone board, one of the key aspects that are really put in place is really the support for diverse families, during in respective programs that we do have. So, of course, we do have a program for learning English as a second language in the French board. We do have all sort of programs that are really supportive towards that. But the most important thing is really just centering the learning around what would bring the identity piece of the Francophone community into perspective.
Excellent. Excellent. I'm thinking about, I'm going back to what you talked about, Dr. Borchardt, around data-driven decisions. I think data is so inclusive and it impacts everything, whether if it's data around the hard skills or the soft skills that we use. But when we have conversations with community or with parents, they may not understand the data connection or appreciate the data, or sometimes even the media exaggerates the data in terms of what we're trying to do, what we're accomplishing, let alone aside some of the soft skills that we're talking about in terms of the humanistic piece. Can you talk a little bit about data driven and how you translate the use of data for all your staff, but also communicating that with parents and community to understand the importance of it and what role they could possibly play?
Sure, great question. So when you think about data, to begin with, one of the things that we have to always center on is, first of all, knowing our students by name, strength, and need. When we know our students by name, strength, and need, the assessments that they take begins our data journey. And when I say it begins our data journey, so at the beginning of the school year, they have an opportunity to take the beginning of the school year assessments. And when students have an opportunity to understand this is what the data is saying that I know. And so equipping them with that language, talking to the parents about here is where we are with what your student knows as it relates to the standards that they should know by a particular grade level. So pre-K through 12. So when our students understand that, when our parents understand that, they begin to help us shape the narrative about where we need to go from here. So from the beginning of the school year, it says that my child is still in need of understanding algebraic formulas. Okay. Just having that piece of information in isolation means nothing. As students begin to engage in the classroom and do their assignments, critically thinking about collaborating with other students, when they take that next assessment or when they do that next assignment after the instruction and they see the growth, that's when that conversation takes on a different meaning. But having data in isolation and not being able to compare it to anything, not being able to compare it against a target or an end goal, doesn't do us any good. But when we say this is where we're starting, this is where we are in the middle, and at the end of the year, look at the amount of growth that my child has accomplished. That changes the narrative for everyone, for the student, for the parent, for the community. And then when you begin to celebrate, people begin to understand, oh, our students are very capable of doing this. When they begin to see, I had an opportunity to work with a teacher. We were working with some writing. And when she looked at the students' writing at the midpoint, she said, I don't know why you're celebrating. And I said, okay, let's take a look at the writing at the very beginning of the year. Now, this was a student who was in second grade. That student had maybe 5 words on the page. Now, when we looked at it at the middle of the year, that student had half of a paragraph.
Right.
So
Yeah.
then she could see, when I
and that's important.
This makes a difference. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and that's a great way of using data to explain to, educators as well as parents in terms of it's not necessarily where the student is, it's where they came from.
Exactly.
And, and I know in many of the states, that's a conversation in terms of how they calculate growth for school districts, especially in the inner cities and things like that, where they may think, well, they're not reaching the standard of the state, but look how much growth has happened for those.
And that's why it's important that when you write school improvement plans, it's important to say that every student is going to grow. We didn't say they're going to hit proficiency at that particular time, but as they continue to grow, they will eventually hit proficiency.
Right. So, Dominic, I want to go to you because I know you've done a tremendous amount of work on school improvement, and we're talking about data. How does data influence that? What are the instructions you give to your staff, your administrators, in terms of utilization of data, but at the same time, understanding that you need not just the hard data, but also the soft data to encourage students' engagement, right? And you were talking about coming out of the pandemic, and that was a huge time when student engagement was critical, right? You couldn't even get the kids engaged. Forget about trying to collect some data or anything like that. Any thoughts on that, Dom?
Yeah, thank you. And I want to make sure I extend on some of the great comments made by Dr. Borchardt as well. So data is so vast. Like there's collection of academic data, right? And then it's that soft data. And sometimes data gives us information that makes us feel good. But if you go a little deeper, there's actually a problem. And I'll give you a practical example. One of the questions we've asked all of our schools is about a caring adult. Like the question might be something like, do you have a caring adult that you can go to when faced with a problem? And let's just take an example that a school might have got 75% of the students said that they have a caring adult that they can go to. And people might look at that, the general public might look at that, the community might look at that and say, hey, that's pretty good. But if you go deeper, that means 25% of your students do not have a caring adult. There's a problem. You could have 75%, but what about those 25%? And so when you go a little deeper, you start digging into what has caused the 25%. And so there might be a connection issue that needs to be addressed. There might be a reach out that is not being connected. There's a group of students maybe in that 25% that do not feel like they belong or that they have that joy of learning. And as many of your previous guest speakers from this morning have said, when you don't have that engagement, it leads to other negative pieces in engagement of schools. So the data piece really needs to be carefully read and not just glossed over. You need to really look deeper into it. What is it telling you, but what is it not telling you as well? And you may need to get more from that.
Right. And you know what? In data, you can use data to tell the stories that you want to tell in certain situations, right? And I think about the tremendous context that you have, Dr. Merchant, in Texas. And you're hearing this data conversation, and I'm wondering about administrators, if they're even worried about that, dealing with these other issues super succeed over their core mission. And so the question for administrators identifies the essential for being successful in their roles today, right? And you've talked about people having to resign or leave and things like that. So in the face of intense politics and legislative scrutiny in Texas, how must your definition of success for administrators' leadership evolve to protect core purpose of public education? Right, and that probably could be spread in other jurisdictions as well too. But in your context, I think it's critical. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, the administrators basically articulate what the speakers have already said about their focus is on the child and then helping that child achieve his or her potential and, and serving the community. That's where they want to put their energy and their time. And so they act as buffers as much as they can between the state and their local school. And what they do is they do look at that data very closely that they're provided with. And they critique the data in terms of what are the data really showing us? What can we learn from the data? But what's not being measured or what's being measured inaccurately. And dealing with learning to really get ahead of the publicity, because now the state has a report card that they give out, and they give between an A and a D to schools, and a lot of schools are getting Ds. And so the principals that are really effective with their community get out ahead of it, and they tell the parents, okay, this is the story. We're telling our story.
Right.
Here's what we've done. Look at what your child has achieved over the course of the year. Let's work together. And that sense of belonging in a place where it's very difficult to feel like you belong.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're resilient. I mean, these people that I'm working with are really good people, but they do have to watch out for their mental health and well-being. It's extremely stressful.
And that's a part that we often forget is like you have to take care. Well, the same thing. I always give this example. When you're in an airplane, when they say an emergency happens, put the oxygen on yourself first before you can help the child. Because if you're not well, then you can't help. So I worry about the state of our leaders and educators in areas like Texas, where they're being bombarded with so many pieces. If they're well enough to actually even do the work that's required, because it is heavy lifting, and you all know that, right? So it's hard enough already as it is. So we're getting close to times, but I do want to give all of you last 15 seconds or so to make a closing statement around this issue of achievement, innovation. We didn't get a chance to get into too much innovation as much, but hopefully this is a conversation we can continue in November and actually go to some action points. But based on what you've heard, any last quick statements you want to make before we depart? And I'll start with who went last. Why don't we start with you first, Dominic?
Yeah, thank you. And again, thank you for the opportunity this morning. Teaching and the education sector can be seen as hard, right? Hard work, hard pushing people. One of the themes that has been coming through right from all your different panels is collaboration. When we do this together, big things become smaller, and you're not alone. It's when you feel alone where you feel like everything's going to be hard. And so I'm so happy we brought this panel together and all the other pieces that you've done. So thank you very much for making me a part of it.
Okay. Thank you for being here all the way from the north. Appreciate it. Eric, to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Joe, and thank you to all my co-panelists for such a wonderful conversation. I think today's conversation reminds us that education as a whole is really above and about people. It's regardless of the challenges, whether in Texas or in Toronto or in Missouri. I think regardless of the challenge that we face every single day, the greatest opportunity lies in really working together, just like Dominic mentioned, collaboration, working together and learning from one another too, and certainly remaining very committed to creating the best possible experience for every learner. So I really enjoyed the conversation today. Thank you for the opportunity, and I'm really looking forward to continuing that.
Okay. Dr. Borshad.
Oh, this has been so great. I wish we could keep this going. But I just have 4 things that I think our principals have got to do in Texas. Definitely be self-aware. What are your core values, your non-negotiables? Got to develop some better skills in mediation, conflict resolution, marketing, and definitely got to become more politically savvy, how to create coalitions and that kind of thing.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Dr. Borshad?
Thank you so much. I so appreciate this forum. Thank you to my co-panelists. Thank you to all of the things that have been said. I want to say that, first of all, we should make sure that we're always leading with integrity, understanding the rules of engagement, hearing Dr. Merchant, and know that educating children is hard work, but when we keep them at the center and create spaces for them to grow and thrive, that is the biggest joy, celebration, and success that we could ever ask for.
Excellent. Excellent. So let me end by first thanking you all for taking your precious time in the middle of the summer. I know some of you are in some heat and some of you are on vacation, but some of you are back working already. But we appreciate you coming and starting this conversation. I say starting a conversation because we're going to continue this conversation in November at Clearwater Beach, Florida. So hopefully you can get a chance to join us where we'll have these conversations. We're also going to do some action planning where we can actually take some strategic steps into making a change across the country in education. You can always go to our website, TWI Group, and we're looking for presenters for that face-to-face as well. So you can go on there and check that off, and we'll see you in beautiful Clearwater Beach for that event. And lastly, I want to thank you and do a shameless plug for my book, Calculated Risk, Leadership Lessons and Stories, which chronicles some of my journey and some memoirs and some of the many of the concepts that you've talked about in terms of challenges and things that we've overcome. And I share a framework around decision-making. Everything we've talked about today has to do with decisions. And I talk about how we make decisions and the impact of decisions. That can be found on Amazon. You can click on that and go right to it. But most importantly, I'm so grateful that you all took the time to be here today and to share your thoughts and wisdom with us, and look forward to communicating with you offline and online. And hopefully we'll see you in November. You can go on and use the QR code to get information about TomoClub and their resources, and also the QR code to go on to the TWI Group and look for our future events. Thank you to all our panelists and participants participating in this very engaging conversation. I said at the beginning, at the end, it's not where you start, it's where you finish. And together, I think we'll be able to finish the race in terms of true success for our students and their nation. Thank you, everyone. Have a great summer if I don't see you. Special thanks to our executive members, Kevin Robinson, Stephanie Phillips, and Noel Green, who've been online.